not going to do anything with the money line, but 11.5 seems a little inflated. It feels like we're paying the South Carolina tax because obviously they're the best women's team in the country. They're undefeated. But 11.5 seems like a lot for NC State. I kind of like NC State, and I kind of like the under at 139.5 as well. Any thoughts on that one, or are you staying away?
I think it's probably... I think I'm going to take NC State. What we've seen for South Carolina, they're obviously very good.
Yeah.
The number's gone up and up and up. We saw a 9.5, a 10.5, now an 11.5.
That's what I mean. 11.5. We're a game. The total is 139 only.
Yeah, and I watched South Carolina last game, and I don't know that they've covered this entire tournament. I'm trying to get a sense of that right now.
I think one game.
Maybe one game.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It was 15.5 the other night. Like these numbers have been so inflated. No, they haven't covered.
They didn't. Maybe they covered against Oregon State. They didn't cover against Indiana. Do you know what the Indiana line was?
It ended up being 16.5, right, or 17.5?
19.5. I jumped on Indiana 19.5.
Yeah, I remember.
They went down big. They covered very easily. Like they only lost by 4. Obviously UNC they covered. So maybe it was just UNC that they covered. They did not cover the Presbyterian game because I think it was like 57.5 or something like that. Crazy. So 11.5 against the NC State team that's kind of rolling.
Yeah.
That would only be NC State or nothing for me.
No, I like NC State. I like NC not to win. I like them to cover up. And I like them to cover up because I think my big, special, precious boy, DJ Burns, can do something that no one else that's gone up against Zach Edey can do, which is beat the hell out of him. And if I got to go tinfoil cap on this one, and I do, DJ Burns has become America's sweetheart, right? Like, he's the guy that everybody's paying attention to. Everybody's enjoying watching how much he's enjoying himself. I don't think Zach Edey, because of that, is going to get the calls that he's used to getting, that he traditionally gets. I think that levels the field. I still think Purdue wins, but I'll tell you the props I like. I like DJ Burns over 3.5 assists. I am all in selling the farm on that because I think Purdue knows you got to collapse around that guy. I'm all in for DJ Horn on the outside, his over points total, because he is going to get left alone for the double teams down low. The only one I'm going DJ Burns under on assist. NC State was the worst defensive rebounding team in the ACC this year, and the only way that Purdue's going to win this game is second chance points from Zach Edey. They're going to have to rely on Burns to have his best rebounding game. I don't think it matters. What he can do is he can keep Zach Edey from getting the ball within that 3-4 foot mark that he likes to get the ball in. He can push Zach Edey around unlike anybody else that cat's played in this tournament, and I think that alone keeps it close.
Ben, getting really excited for the NFL draft, one of my favorite times of the season. I love this wide receiver class. It's deep, it's loaded, but I actually wanted to talk about the quarterbacks. I see you and Eric Eager have been doing the same, and it looks like Caleb Williams most likely going to be the number 1 overall pick to Chicago. For the last year and a half, I've been a big Drake May fan. I get that people aren't in love with his mechanics, but your thoughts on Drake May, Jaden Daniels, that debate at who goes number 2, and who would be your preference? Because I'm a big May guy, but I do like Jaden Daniels, especially because I had the Heisman futures.
Yeah, I know in some ways we got to disagree, but to me, Ryan, I'm definitely with you. I think, the weird thing about Jaden Daniels is obviously very much lived or exceeded expectations in his college season, and we didn't really see him, I would say, climb up, the proverbial mock draft rankings until, almost like a March, April sort of time, or maybe the February, March kind of time frame. And I think to me, it was almost delayed gratification for what he was maybe had done in the college football season. But I still think this is a spot where, I think sharp analytical teams are kind of buying into this understanding that early breakouts from players means a lot for how productive they can be at the NFL level. And I think Drake May, obviously really young still, really only has like the 3 solid true junior type season in college. Like, his ceiling outcome is, I would say, at least has to be pretty close to Caleb Williams, if not could potentially exceed him given the right circumstances, given the right development. But kind of like you said, I think there are games, especially, going back to it, like the Minnesota Gophers, they played last year in week 3, a game that I was at. Like, there are some very big hits that he has at certain points in times, throws that, I would say in this draft class, really only him and Caleb Williams can make, but there are some very questionable things, flat type throws that are going to get picked off, bad reads, how he kind of handles pressure, especially up the middle. Like, those are very much questions, but I think, where he was good at, really good from a sack avoidance standpoint, does believe that he can make every single throw on the football field. And I think given the right environment, context, obviously if he has a couple of receivers around him and a really strong offensive coordinator, they're going to be able to build a overall offensive scheme that can definitely maximize his talents. And I think given that, he doesn't necessarily have to be the most accurate thrower in order to find NFL success, because I do think a lot of it is going to be in a similar fashion to what CJ Stroud did last year with kind of the explosive play rate and maybe not needing to have quite as high of a completion percentage over expectation to really run an efficient offense. So that's kind of how I see it breaking down. Very much, I think he has to land in the right environment, and being a Minnesota Vikings fan, I very much think coming home to Minnesota would be the best case scenario for Drake May and Vikings fans right now.
Yeah, I was just in Boston, Ben, and was listening to Sports Sunday, and they were playing all of the bad clips of Drake May at his pro day. They hate him. I don't know what it is, but Boston media was losing their mind as they think Drake May is like a bit of a better version than Mac Jones. So nuts stuff. But like you mentioned how important it is for him to go to the right situation. How disastrous would a pairing of Drake May and New England be to you?
It would be pretty bad. I do think in a lot of scenarios, even with what they have from a coaching staff perspective, it just doesn't seem like the development would really be there for a guy that in a lot of ways probably is as raw as what Drake May potentially is. So I do think in a lot of scenarios, that's where you do kind of see, the guy with the big arm, the gunslinger who goes from a really high draft pick, just doesn't perform whatsoever. And I think that's kind of very much, what people are labeling Drake May and what he could potentially be. But there still is this upside case to him. And I agree with you, Tristan, the fact that he kind of does need to land in the right situation in order to kind of realize that sort of ceiling outcome performance. And I do think there's just not too many scenarios or simulations where Drake May in New England is successful, and I think very much it would be because of the infrastructure around him, both on the field and what they kind of provide from a coaching staff perspective. I think they're still a year or two away, and I very much think that's why we could and probably will see the New England Patriots move out of that third selection and kind of make that quarterback decision a year or two from now, once have at least kind of built up the back end of the roster a little bit better.